CP Security Room Permeation, becoming the heir of the distillery at the beginning. Pingyuan, due to an accident, crossed into the world of Conan and unexpectedly became the eldest lady of the Black Fang family. Fortunately, the Umaru family is very wealthy and doesn't lack her food or clothing. Unfortunately, her little uncle Umaru Xia is a lunatic who constantly brainwashes her every day, trying to cultivate her into a cold-blooded and ruthless high IQ pervert. Pingyuan Chun often finds himself out of place with them due to his lack of abnormality. The most terrifying thing is that Plain Pure seems to have inherited Conan's skill to randomly discover new victims anywhere. Neighbor Sanyuan, who died mysteriously in his own home, was found by the police to have committed murder in a secret room. What exactly is the killer who, without realizing it, killed someone in the secret room and fled? What truth lies behind the middle-aged man who died at the birthday banquet? Junichi Hirahara said, "I can fall in love and solve a case while facing the beauty of Toshio Yasushi. The female protagonist is strong, with a slight sand sculpture." Chapter 1. Nightmares. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Shao Si, you must remember that you are the strongest assassin in the world, my number one. Mom. Mom. Where are you? Little 4 is so scared. The little girl, about 5 years old, wrapped in a tattered cloth, with tears on her face, murmured to herself while sleeping. Shao Si, emotions are all unnecessary things, they are stumbling blocks that stop you from reaching the summit. The man's face was only shrouded in a mist of indistinct expression, but he could still feel his cold gaze as he looked at a man and a woman lying on the ground in front of him. The men and women embraced each other, with a blood hole in their chest, and they died together in this cold winter. The man who covered his face with smoke turned his head to look at the girl next to him who was only 10 years old, and his voice suddenly became gentle. Shao Si, don't waste your emotions on unrelated people. Let's go home. As the scene turned, there was this child again, about 15 years old, already beautiful and clean. However, at this moment, her fair face was filled with stillness and pale, and blood flowed from her chest. In a pair of extremely beautiful transparent eyes, a man whose face was covered by black mist was reflected. Shao Si, can't you even avoid a sniper at 700 yards? The man's voice remained cold, take care of yourself. If you can't tolerate this injury, how can you be a child of my Umaru family? Bang! The sudden vibration made the Plain Pure, immersed in the nightmare, suddenly open her eyes. The transparent eyes still revealed an indescribable sharpness and coldness, and the colorful reality presented before her eyes. What happened? A man in a high-rise building in the United States toasted a glass of wine to the distant sky and said, "Go and overturn the mainland of Japan, my number one. Don't move." The man wearing a black mask pulled out a knife and pressed it against the child's fragile throat at some point. The child, who was only about 3 or 4 years old, was suddenly taken hostage, and a huge panic enveloped him, struggling in the arms of the criminal. Don't move around. The criminal was not so amiable, and the small knife in his hand was closer to the child's neck. The child seemed to feel the danger and settled down in the arms of the criminal. You. What do you want to do? A flight attendant walked forward with fear in her heart, trying to appease the criminal. However, the criminal was like a frightened bird, and the tip of the knife in her hand immediately pointed at the flight attendant. What do you want to do? Don't come over. Right now. Pingyuan Chun secretly thought to herself and was ready to take action. Her seat happened to be very close to the criminal. Seeing the child in front of her, Pingyuan Chun felt like she had seen her childhood self. No one helped or cared, and everyone only cared about what you had learned and what knowledge you had gained. The most common thing everyone said to her was, "You are the last hope of our Umaru family." However, before she could take action, the boy next to her had already stood up and subdued the criminal with great precision. So. Who is that? Junichi Hirahara's mind was momentarily blank, with light golden hair, wheat-colored skin, and blue pupils. Unsure too. Unexpectedly, when he saw his idol, plain Junichi didn't know what expression to make. As a soul from a different world, she never imagined that one day she could meet up so close in reality. Unsure too suppressed the person to the ground and tied it with a rope. He didn't know where he came from before holding the child. Where does this child come from? Me. It's mine, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for saving my child. Pingyuan watched from the side, her eyes turning red unconsciously. Mom. During her unhappy childhood, only her mother cared for her as always, but they didn't see each other much. Mom is still at headquarters now. Everything is developing in a positive direction, and the criminals are easily subdued by Anyutaka. The plane can continue to fly to its destination, but the innate sense of danger always makes plain Chun feel that something is wrong. At this moment, good hearing made Pingyuan Chun hear the murmur from the just subdued thug's mouth, "Let's go to hell together." What? Pingyuan Chun suddenly looked back and saw a remote control that the criminal was holding in his hand for an unknown time. She wanted to press it down, and in a state of urgency, she didn't care to hide anything. The ring that had been held in her palm had already been released. Without seeing the plane exert any force, the ring heavily bombarded the criminal's hand. The criminal let out a scream, and the remote control in his hand had already been released. It dribbled a few times and landed at the foot of the security room. What is this? Toshio Yasushi picked up the remote control and looked at the thug's spasmodic hand next to him. In an instant, he seemed to understand something, his face darkened, and he immediately searched the thug's body carefully before giving up. Sir. You. The flight attendant walked forward with a hint of respect in her tone. This is a man who subdues criminals with bare hands. The culprit should have installed a bomb on the plane, and this is the detonation device for the bomb, and Shirtu said to the flight attendant while searching for something in the open space. Please contact the driver and ask them to drive to the destination as soon as possible. At the same time, contact the tower and ask them to call the police. It is currently unknown whether this bomb will detonate on time. Bomb. After all, the flight attendant had seen the big wind and waves before. Although she was surprised, she quickly calmed down and followed what Shirtu said. On the ground, Shirtu finally found what he was looking for. A deep blue ring. This should be the thing that stopped the thug from pressing the detonator. When he searched for the thug's body, he also checked the wound on his hand, and it was really spasmodic to the point where his hand was twisted. The person who did it was quite ruthless and probably not an ordinary person. Plain Pure watched helplessly as the ring was taken away by Shirtu. She thought to herself that it was in trouble now. That ring was of great significance to her and could never fall into the hands of others. She could only grit her teeth and stand up. Sir. Unsure looked back, but didn't see anyone for a moment, until he felt a force tugging at his sleeve next to him. He lowered his head and met his gaze with a pair of transparent eyes, but it was only a momentary separation. Pingyuan Chun was indeed a bit afraid to look at him, but just to conceal her inner excitement, she finally spoke to the male god. It's my first time in this world. Although I don't know why he was on this plane. But excited. However, she was also afraid that Unsure could see something through it. After all, the man in front of her was not built on his insight. She turned her head slightly and said, Sir, I accidentally dropped that blue ring. Can you give it back to me? Chapter 2. Being a Guest. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 3. First Sight. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 4. Application. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 5. Coffee. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 6. Riot. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 7. Encountering attacks. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 8. Doubts. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 9. Judy. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 10. A secret. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text.